Let's dive right in, because there's a massive shift happening in government contracting. We're talking about moving away from just selling hours and people and towards selling actual capabilities packaged up as a product. And for a lot of companies, this isn't just some new trend, it's about survival.
This one sentence from a capture manager just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that awful feeling of watching your team's brilliant work, your own innovation, get packaged up by a competitor and then used to beat you. It's that sinking realization that you're leaving your most valuable assets just sitting on the table, totally unrecognized.
So let's break down the two ways of doing business here. On one hand, you've got the traditional services model. Your growth is totally linear. If you want to make more money, you have to hire more people. Simple as that. But that leaves you wide open to what's called key person risk, where your entire capability can literally walk out the door if one expert decides to leave. The product-enabled model, though, it completely changes the game. You start selling capability, which means you get scalable growth, you build real enterprise value, and you can deliver your solution over and over again.
All right, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to walk through this whole transformation step by step. First, we'll dig into why the old model is in crisis. Then we'll get into a super practical framework for how you can find, build, scale, and actually sell your own product in the federal market.
So, let's start with the problem. Picture this. You're a really successful services firm, right? And all of a sudden, you lose a huge recompete. And it wasn't on price, it wasn't on past performance. It's because some smaller, nimbler competitor came in selling a platform. They sold a thing, while you were still just selling people. That right there is the crisis of the pure services model. Think about it. Your most valuable intellectual property, all those clever scripts, repeatable processes, and unique data models your team built, it's often born inside a single contract, and then it's just abandoned there. It becomes a line item, a deliverable. The government gets the rights, and your company loses the asset. This is a massive, repeated missed opportunity to build something that lasts.
Okay, so that's the problem. Let's start talking about the solution. And it all begins with this really powerful idea. Your first and best product, it probably already exists. It's just buried somewhere inside your company's history. You don't need to invent it from scratch, you just need to go find it. This is what we call the harvest stage.
So the first step isn't some big off-site brainstorming session. Nope, it's what we call contract archaeology. It's really just a methodical process of digging through your old proposals, interviewing your delivery leads, and looking at past contract work to find those hidden gems, the valuable assets you've already built, and probably on the government's dime.
And this isn't just some vague concept. There's a real four-step method to it. You start by pulling your proposal's archive, looking for keywords like framework or accelerator. Then, and this part is crucial, you go talk to the people on the ground, your project managers, and find out what they're actually reusing day to day. After that, you map those repeats to find the patterns. See, a tool used on one contract is interesting, but a tool used on 5 contracts, well, that's a product candidate.
As you're digging, you're going to find your intellectual property usually falls into one of 3 buckets. First is process IP. That's your unique how, your repeatable methods. Then you have tool IP, which is the what, the actual scripts and dashboards you've built. And finally, there's data IP, which is the most overlooked of all. It's the knowledge you've gained, the benchmarks, the models. Seeing your work through these categories is key to spotting that product potential.
Okay, so your archaeology dig unearths a few potential products. Now you move from the harvest stage to the architect stage. And here's the hard part. You cannot go after all of them. Spreading your resources too thin is just a recipe for failure. You have to concentrate your forces. You have to choose one hill to climb. And this isn't just a gut decision. This framework right here helps you make that choice objectively. You don't guess, you score. You evaluate each candidate against these 4 critical filters: your market access, your competitive position, how it aligns with security authorizations, and the economics of it. The winner isn't always the biggest idea. It's the one with the highest probability of success for your company, right now. So now that you've picked your hill, we enter the risk-proof stage. This is where you build trust and, more importantly, a massive barrier to entry for your competition. And in the federal market, that barrier isn't just about cool technology or features, it's about compliance. We're talking about federal security authorizations like FedRAMP.
Now, the cost of the entry here is significant. This number, $1.4 million, is what a real company invested to get their first FedRAMP authorization. It is a daunting figure, right? It includes everything: assessor fees, engineering time, consultants. It's an investment that makes a lot of companies just stop in their tracks.
But here's the payoff. That grueling, expensive 9-month journey for that first customer, it created a reusable asset. So for the second customer, the process wasn't 9 months, it was 6 weeks. Why? Because of reciprocity. The second agency could leverage all the work that was already done. That $1.4 million investment, it wasn't just a cost. It was the creation of a competitive moat that makes future sales cycles dramatically shorter.
So, you've chosen your product, you've cleared the compliance hurdle, now it's time to actually build for scale. This is the build stage, and the mantra here is pretty simple: standardize or perish. Because if every new customer requires you to write custom code, you don't really have a product, you just have a consulting shop with some slick marketing.
A really powerful way to think about this is the 70-30 principle. Your product should have a 70% standardized core that is exactly the same for every single customer. That's your foundation. Then, around that core, you build a 30% configurable surface that allows agencies to adapt the product for their mission without you having to write a single new line of code.
So what's in that 70% core? Well, these are the absolute non-negotiables. Your security controls have to be identical, because that's what your FedRAMP authorization is based on. The core functions, the infrastructure, the ops procedures, all of that forms the stable, reliable, and authorized foundation of your product.
And the 30% configurable surface? That's where you build in flexibility. You let customers define their own workflows, build custom reports, connect to their systems with standard APIs, and maybe tweak the UI a bit. This is exactly how you can serve the VA, the Air Force, and HHS, all from a single code base.
Okay, now for the final critical piece of the puzzle, the replicate stage. You can have the best, most scalable, fully authorized product on the planet, but if a government contracting officer can't figure out an easy way to buy it, it is basically worthless. How you sell is just as important as what you sell.
This slide just illustrates the whole problem perfectly. You've got two companies, both with a product that's ready to go. But Meridian Analytics, they don't have a contract vehicle in place, which forces a year-long painful RFP process. DataLens Federal, on the other hand, got on a GSA schedule ahead of time, which allows for an award in just 45 days. In government contracting, speed and ease of acquisition wins, period.
Making your product purchasable means translating it into the language of procurement, and that language is contract line item numbers, or CLINs. A super clear, logical CLIN structure like this one makes it incredibly easy for a contracting officer to understand what they're buying. You've got a fixed-price subscription for the software, a fixed-price line for setup, and maybe an optional time and materials CLIN for any custom work. It's simple, it's clear, and it's easy to award.
All right, let's bring it all together and recap the entire journey. We've walked through the whole Harbor framework, which is really a roadmap for taking a services company and turning it into a product-enabled powerhouse.
It all starts with harvesting the assets you already own. Then, you architect your strategy by choosing one single product to go all in on. You risk-proof that product by building a competitive moat with security compliance. You build it for scale using that 70-30 principle. And finally, you learn to replicate your success by mastering procurement. Each stage builds on the last, creating this repeatable engine for growth.
Look, this shift from selling hours to selling capability, it's not some future trend. It's happening right now. Agencies want expertise captured in a form they can use again and again efficiently. This is a massive challenge to the old way of doing business, for sure, but it is also an enormous opportunity. And that really leaves every leader in this space with one critical question they have to answer for themselves.